So, since progressives like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are extremely popular right now, right-wingers are doing everything they possibly can to smear and discredit her because obviously the popular policy ideas that she's espousing, well, that threatens the electoral viability of Republicans. It also threatens their worldview. So Fox News has kind of been doing this a lot lately. They've been trying to smear Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and some of the more simpler things they've been doing to try to discredit her is just airing her speeches, which you're actually helping her, so thank you, Fox. But what they wanted to do was they wanted to basically explain to millennials who don't watch Fox News that you shouldn't be excited about her because she is overwhelmingly popular among millennials. You shouldn't be excited about her because really she's stupid, she's dumb. That's basically their argument. Now, in order to make their argument more credible, they brought on another millennial in order to bash Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and that's really what Fox has been doing for a while now. If you want someone to condemn Black Lives Matter, who better than someone who's black? If you want to know why you should be against the gay rights, who better to explain away LGBT equality than someone from the gay community? So they tried to replicate that same strategy here and brought on a millennial to smear another millennial. Now, I'm going to show you a series of clips, and you're probably going to get the same sense that I did while watching, that there wasn't really an underlying thesis or hypothesis that they wanted to put forward about Alexandria. They just showed various clips and shit on her in every conceivable way they possibly could. So in this first clip, this is Tomi Lahren's general take on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Socialist millennial Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez hitting the campaign trail with Bernie Sanders this week after shocking the political establishment and taking out Pelosi's protege. But is she all sizzle and no steak? Here's what she said when questioned on Israeli-Palestinian relations.
You used the term the occupation of Palestine. What did you mean by that?
I think what I meant is like the settlements that are increasing in some of these areas and places where Palestinians are experiencing difficulty in access to their housing and homes.
Do you think you can expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd also I am not the expert on geopolitics on this issue.
That's for sure. Joining me now, Fox News contributor Tomi Lahren. Now, Tomi, you and I have been in situations where I'm sure we don't really know exactly what we're talking about, but we're able to fudge it and we can wing it and at least pretend to kind of have a semblance of knowledge about the subject. You never throw your hands up and you say, I'm not an expert.
She's also running for office, so that makes it a little bit more disturbing. But Jesse, I gotta tell you, I used to love it when Hillary Clinton would come on TV because I thought that it would make it so much easier for us in November and in 2020, but I'm over Hillary. This is my new girl. I love to see her on TV. I think it's hilarious.
I do too. I think I'm gonna donate to her campaign because I want her to go as far as possible in the Democratic Party. Maybe she could run on Biden's ticket. Maybe it could be Biden-Cortez. I like the sound of that.
I like the sound of it too, but you know, she's also a democratic socialist and she's going to be campaigning with Bernie Sanders. You know, the young people are supposed to love socialism, but also young people love reality TV. So Jesse, I have an idea. Why don't we take Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, why don't we drop them into the socialist nation of their choice and see how long they last?
I love that idea.
So the explicit assumption here is that because she admitted that she's not an expert on Israel-Palestine, well, she must be dumb. And she's dumb specifically because, as he puts it, you know, she didn't fudge it. Because what did Jesse Waters say? You know, you and I have been in situations, Tomi, where I'm not sure I'm sure we don't really know exactly what we're talking about, but we're able to fudge it and we can wing it and pretend to kind of have a semblance of knowledge about the subject. You never throw your hands up and say you're not an expert. Except that's exactly what you do if you don't know about a particular subject. There's so many topics with regard to policy and international affairs and Middle East and North African geopolitics that it's impossible for any one person to know everything about every single issue ever. But here we had this Freudian slip from Jesse Waters here where he admits, look, I'm a bullshitter.
We can wing it and at least pretend to kind of have a semblance of knowledge about the subject.
If I don't know something, I'm going to keep talking and I'm going to pretend as if I know something. And you're never going to see me admitting that we've reached the limits of my knowledge. I'm knowledgeable about everything, or at least I'm going to pretend like I know everything. And because Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had the nerve to admit that she's not an expert on this particular policy, well, she must be dumb. She must be stupid because she's not willing to bullshit people like me. Well, how does that help you? Because you're admitting that you're a bullshitter and she's admitting that she's more honest. That's inherently more appealing. I'll take someone who is more honest and who's willing to admit that they don't know about a particular issue than someone who's just gonna bullshit me. Because odds are, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna know if someone is pissing on your leg and trying to tell you it's raining. You're gonna know that they're full of shit. And unfortunately for individuals like Jesse Waters and Tomi Lahren, they're full of shit, I think, most of the time. Now, I want to talk about the most ridiculous part of this entire exchange here, where Tomi Lahren actually compares Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to Hillary Clinton. She states here, Jesse, I gotta tell you, I used to love it when Hillary Clinton would come on TV because I thought it would make it so much easier for us in November and in 2020, but I'm over Hillary. This is my new girl. I love to see her on TV. I think it's hilarious. Now, what Tomi Lahren is speaking to is the fact that Hillary Clinton would start at a certain popularity level, and since nobody liked her, the more she would speak, the more her popularity level would drop. Now, when it comes to progressives like Bernie Sanders, nobody really knew who he was, but the more he spoke in 2016, we saw the more popular he became. And that's also true for someone like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. If you honestly think that people hearing more of her policy ideas is going to turn them off, well, I've got really bad news for you. The policies she's talking about are overwhelmingly popular. So it would actually behoove right-wing propagandists such as yourselves to hide her away from the public, not let her message get out, because odds are it's probably going to resonate with most Americans. But instead, they're making our jobs easy by elevating her progressive policy issues to a national platform. And this is what Sean Hannity did the day after she was elected. He tried to fearmonger about her and show us how scary her policy ideas were, but instead he ended up advertising her policy ideas for all of us. And Waters kind of echoed that sentiment that, yeah, she's great for Republicans because she's going to make our jobs easier. He said, I think I'm going to donate to her campaign because I want her to go as far as possible in the Democratic Party. No, you don't. I want you to think that, but if she is basically the face of the Democratic Party, that's not good for right-wingers, because the one thing that defeats right-wing populism, the one thing that defeats a right-wing demagogue like Donald Trump, is left-wing populism. You see this around the world. But they think that her being the face of Democrats or being increasingly popular is actually bad for the left. And it just shows you how out of touch they are with the general population. Now, Tomi Lahren states, young people love socialism, but young people also love reality TV. So Jesse, I have an idea. Why don't we take Bernie and Alexandria, drop them off in the socialist nation of their choice, and see how long they last? Now, she kind of fucked up her talking point there, because if you're talking about other socialist nations, of course you pivot to Venezuela. You say, let's drop them off in Venezuela, but she didn't. She gave us the option. So if you tell Bernie Sanders or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, hey, we're going to film you, pick a socialist nation of your choice, can you guess what they're going to say? Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Scandinavian countries are what they're going to say. So she messed up there. And what she's also trying to do is denigrate her own generation. The Fox News viewer, the average Fox News viewer is what, over 70? So she's trying to make it seem like, oh, well, you know, since millennials are so dumb and they only care about things like reality television, let's create a reality television show in order to reach them, to show them just how bad socialism really is. But the problem about this generalization about millennials is that she's also a millennial. So in suggesting that our generation, you know, they're just dumb, they're superficial, they're simple-minded, you're also lumping yourself in that category, genius. So it shows shows just how dumb you are specifically. Because you're saying, oh, millennials are dumb. People in my generation are dumb. You're part of that generation, numbnuts. So what are you trying to do? If you want people to take you more seriously, shouldn't you say, look, I'm a millennial and you should take me seriously? Instead, she's saying all of my generation are stupid. That's what she's saying. Now, throughout this particular exchange, I expected them to respond specifically to Alexandria's comments on Israel, because they said that they disagree with her, so naturally, you'd expect them to present a counter-argument of their own, but they didn't even really touch on her comments. But they weren't done shitting on Ocasio-Cortez just yet, because they brought up another seemingly random thing to attack her for.
Let's hear what her opinion was on direct action in the streets. Roll it.
We have to have a rapid response. And I think every day that we go on, especially a day when something that heinous happens, we have to occupy all of it. We need to occupy every airport. We need to occupy every border. We need to occupy every ICE office.
I mean, she doesn't understand about the Israeli occupation, but she wants to occupy everything in America. I don't think this tactic is effective, do you?
I think it gets some people riled up, which of course it has because she's been somewhat successful. But yeah. I'll tell you that she also said she was going to take a lot of her policy direction from activists. And I have a question for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Which activists? Is it going to be the activists that riot, loot, and burn their local businesses? Or is it the activists that march around in the streets with reproductive organs on their head? I mean, which activists is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez going to be taking direction from her policy? Because as we know, she really doesn't have a lot of policy experience. This isn't her strong suit, so I'm wondering where she's going to get it from.
Yeah, I don't think she knows. Maybe she can get it at Bernie's house.
So the first thing I've got to touch on is when Tomi Lahren states she doesn't really have a lot of policy experience. This isn't her strong suit. Where's your experience, Tomi? Bloviating about conservatism and using right-wing talking points that are tired and debunked doesn't make you an expert either. So why are you more qualified to speak on policy than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? Because Fox News hired you because you worked for Glenn Beck, that somehow gives you more authority to speak on these issues? Of course it doesn't. Anyone can have their own ideas about policy. It doesn't matter what your background is. So to try to discredit her by saying she's not really qualified to talk about policy is really an elitist argument to make. And she also criticized Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for saying that she's going to take her cue really from activists. She's going to take her policy direction from activists. And then she went on to imply that left-wing grassroots activists are by and large radical. But that's not what she's talking about, and I think that you know what she's talking about. When Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says she's going to take policy direction from grassroots activists, she's talking about minimum wage workers who work for retail chains and fast food restaurants, the Fight for 15. She's talking about Black Lives Matter and those activists who are pushing for criminal justice reform. She's talking about the teachers who were striking in states like West Virginia for better wages. That's what she's talking about. And really, if you want to talk about radicalism, we should be talking about radicalism on the right, because it's your side who's marching with tiki torches last year saying Jews will not replace us. It's your side who ran over grassroots activists with the car. So if you really want to play this game where you talk about which side is more radical, which side is more violent, you're going to lose that game. But we finally reached the end of this segment where they decided to shit on her for one last thing, and here's what they said.
Let's listen to her take on capitalism and the unemployment rate. This one's my favorite. Roll it.
We look at these figures and we say, oh, unemployment is low, everything is fine, right? Well, unemployment is low because everyone has 2 jobs. Unemployment is low because people are working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. I do think that right now, when we have this no-holds-barred, Wild West hyper-capitalism, what that means is profit at any cost. Capitalism has not always existed in the world, and it will not always exist in the world.
Okay, I mean, I hate to fact check her. Everyone has 2 jobs. The people with 2 jobs, and it's its lowest rate in about 11 years. But that's not even how the jobless numbers go down. That's not how the unemployment rate works. It's down because people are working. More Americans are working. I don't think she gets it.
She doesn't get it at all, but it just keeps getting better and better every time she opens her mouth. Like I said, I think it's wonderful. It's always interesting to watch a train wreck. But as I said earlier, she loves socialism so much, she doesn't think that capitalism is going to be around forever. So let's drop her in Venezuela. Let's have her live there. Let's just give her 6 months. Let's give her 6 months in Venezuela and see how well she likes it. I would like to document it.
I wouldn't give her 6
weeks.
I wouldn't give her 6 weeks. You know what she reminds me of, Tommy? You remember when I used to go out and do those street interviews and talk to people and they were just totally clueless? She reminds me of a guest on Water's World. But my favorite was we have this wild, wild west capitalism. What is she talking about? It's like the most regulated economy of all time. I mean, Trump's kind of slashed those regulations, but I mean, what world is she living in?
Well, not this world, and she obviously doesn't understand that capitalism is what allows us to flourish as a nation. It's what allows her to do things that she does day in and day out, and the young people that are listening to her, I hope that they understand that as well. But I think what she's trying to do is throw out flashy words like socialism because she thinks all the young people are going to flock to her because they flock to Bernie. But I think people are getting smarter, at least I would hope so.
Not if they're watching Fox News. So, this is what they touched on from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I'm going to read to you a quote from Alexandria. Unemployment is low because everyone has 2 jobs. Unemployment is low because people are working 60 to 70 hours per week. Now, I'll admit here, I don't think she explained that very well, but judging by what she said in the past about this particular issue, it seems as if the point she was trying to convey is that unemployment isn't really a good way to gauge how well the working class is doing. Because even if unemployment is low, well, more people are working for lower wage companies, lower wage jobs. More low wage jobs are available. So people are having to work 2, 3 jobs in some instances just to make ends meet. So just because unemployment is low, that doesn't automatically mean that people from the working class aren't struggling, because they still are. But of course, we can't expect 2 millionaires who are out of touch in that DC bubble to grasp that fact, because they're in their own elitist bubble and they don't know what ordinary working class people deal with. However, since she didn't word her answer in that way, that gave these 2 smear merchants an opportunity to try to discredit what she was saying. But they did finally get around to their go-to argument: Venezuela. So what Tomi Lahren states is, drop her in Venezuela and see how long she lasts. So that's what she should have said when she was talking about the reality show beforehand, because if you give us the option to choose which socialist country we're going to live in, we're not going to pick Venezuela, Tommy. We're going to pick somewhere like Denmark. Now, Waters decided to shit on her, saying, my favorite comment from her is, we have this wild, wild west capitalism. What is she talking about? We have the most regulated economy of all time. I mean, Trump's kind of slashed those regulations, but what world is she living in? Now, I love that he stopped and kind of corrected himself there, because as he was talking about just how regulated our economy is, well, even a bullshitter like him couldn't keep a straight face while saying, you know, we live in the most regulated economy ever, as Donald Trump deregulates everything. But when he asks the question, you know, what world is she living in? She's living in a world where we've commodified basically every fucking thing imaginable. Things that shouldn't have a profit motive that now do have a profit motive. A world where health insurance companies profit off of sick people. Where our economy thrives on constant war. Where defense stocks plummet at the prospect of peace between the United States and North Korea, where our education secretary wants to destroy and defund public education so she can push for charter schools so her and her rich friends can get super rich, even more rich than they already are off of that. But the thing about this is that unless someone like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez speaks with the utmost specificity on every single issue ever, well, they're going to try to attack her for it. They're going to find every little thing to nitpick about her because they know she poses a threat. That's why I'm not really all that mad, because the fact that they're dedicating so much attention to her shows that deep down they know that she's a threat. And the irony is that in trying to portray Alexandria as this naive, dim-witted millennial who doesn't know much, they ended up kind of showing just how stupid they are in actuality. So I'm glad that they're dedicating this much attention to her, because it shows we've got them scared, and that's a good position to have your opponents in.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.